Shall we get into demos now? Okay, now I'll go. Let me my screens in order here. So this was actually inspired by some conversations that folks were having earlier this week around a bunch of the AI features. And so we wanted to play around with some of the Snowflake Cortex stuff and just show you all what's possible. So the way it works is that Snowflake actually has a bunch of functions that can just call LLMs on a row-by-row basis. And we can handle the modeling of them really, really well. So essentially what you're doing is you're creating these specialized functions that can do things like classification. You can also just ask the LLM to complete things. And you can essentially just build these little functions for doing any sort of analysis. So I'll show you a couple examples. This one, we will look at states funness. I'm not, again, I have no idea how this actually works, but it's going to go through row by row and do funness. Now, the key here is you actually have to do the grouping before you hit the LLM. Otherwise, it's going to literally go through row by row and do it for the entire data set. So I think correctly, Arkansas has been identified as other. Most of the states are labeled as fun. No real comment, but the South did not do so well in funness. The other really nice aspect here, though, is that you can actually do some sort of completion. We've got this one for state most famous person. And you can see here that it essentially is going to create a function where we just say, who is the most famous person from state? We spent some time looking through this, Stephen and I, and for whatever reason, Snowflake's model really likes The Rock. He's the most famous person in California and Florida. No real comment there. But what's really nice here is that we can also use some of the dynamic aspects of the model to actually make this more interesting. So you can actually pick the LLM that you're using, and so we can actually map this to a dynamic filter. And we can actually toggle between the different models. So we set the default as Snowflake's default model. You can label them, but we can also use, for example, Claude. And you can see that it does a better job at sort of identifying different folks here. This is hitting the cache, which is nice, so we don't need to go rerun the query. But it's pretty amazing, the stuff that you can do here. And Ariel's going to pile on with some more stuff that she sort of figured out.
Hey, Colin, do you mind going on screen again and just doing the drop down to Cortex again so I can send a screenshot to Sav while she's out on leave and just put a smile on her face?
Yeah. So I didn't shove them all in here, but yeah, they've got some small models, some large models. It costs a penny per query, so there's some cost here, but it's actually quite low.
Awesome.
Maybe I just don't fully understand how all the things hook together. So these are all like provided by Snowflake, the access to these models?
Yeah, so the way to think about it is that Snowflake is providing a UDF in SQL that on a row by row basis will ship something to an LLM and pull back a cell. And so we've written a query. You'll notice that I have to encode everything as a string to show it up. But yeah, like it literally just passed back a JSON response on a row by row basis and do stuff.
Can you show us the fun query real quick?
The funness query?
Yeah, sure. Like how did you get funness?
Oh yeah. So I literally just said classify text, and all it does is pass the state name in, and then it classifies it as either a fun state, an unfun state, or other. I have literally no idea what it's doing, but like you can kind of pass anything into a classifier and it'll take the text that it has. In this case, it's literally just the state name.
And you ask it if it has good pizza.
Yeah, let's go state. We can do it on the fly. State pizza quality. I mean, you could probably do this through the complete function, but state has good pizza. State has meh pizza, other. I'm not thinking too hard here. Okay, refresh. remove this. Let's get rid of this. Where's state pizza quality? It's a lot of fun to play with. So I would just,
if we had someone who were like doing a sentiment analysis on customer service data, would we say probably do this in like a query view and then push it to DBT so that it doesn't like constantly rerun the AI every time you?
yes. So you really want to be careful about the rows that you're passing in here. So one thing you can see about how we have it set up, and this is really just for a demo, I'm grouping by state. So I'm only grabbing the 50 states and then passing that in. It will literally run row by row. So if you pass it in even an ungrouped query, like, and put this in the grouping function, it's going to run over every single row and it'll be incredibly slow. So you got to be thoughtful about it. I'm going to let Ariel demo a little bit, but I think what we want to be able to do is pick these up, turn these into data, push it back to the warehouse that you can actually work with it.
This is actually accurate. I don't know about Pennsylvania, but Connecticut and New York, legit.
I didn't know
Yeah,
Indiana had
Massachusetts.
good pizza, so I guess I'll have to go over there.
It's because they're so close to Illinois.
Okay, fair enough. If we change the LLM model, maybe we'll get a different answer. So yeah, Colin inspired me. I was kind of playing with a few other things, trying to come up with some other, maybe more like examples that we would use in business. So one thing I was trying to do is we just really, like last week, I think we demoed summarization on a full data set. I was kind of curious to see if I could get it to summarize row by row. So I built a little that was like sales and orders for each year, and kind of passed in all of that data on a row by row basis and got a little nice readout of like each year. Not too much crazy stuff here, but what's backing that is, again, just a little summary function that just gives it a prompt. Says summarize these figures. I gave it a little more context. And then I did create kind of a compound field that took the whole row and concatenated it together because I was just trying to hack something together. But that's one example. I was also kind of playing around. This is more in line with what Colin was showing, but we were kind of thinking about like maybe marketing enrichment use cases of like, I have a list of leads or companies, and like the only thing like in our data set or in a data set here is the company, and then created just a bunch of columns of like, just what's the, I mean, there's not perfect stuff. I might want to parse this out or ask it slightly different, but like basically just enrichment of data that I would want to write back, like URL. Cool. Company description, like even things like recent news. Like if I'm, like about to go call this company up, what should I know about them? Who's the CEO, and like LinkedIn information. So that was kind of cool. And then this morning on the product channel, somebody had an interesting thought around this that was like, could you give users an end way of like asking those questions? So similar to Colin's little parameter demo, we built a similar thing where I added one column, and I'll show the model in a second. But basically, you can just pass in different questions. So like, who's the CEO? And it's going to go pass that into the function and then dynamically change what is in this column. And again, it takes a little bit of time. But it's also cool because you can just ask new questions like, who's the CTO for each of these companies? And voila. So some cool stuff. And let's see, just to show, I guess, what's backing this. Let's go look at the workbook. And let's go look at the model. So I've got a little table here. I did some pre-aggregation to Colin's point, and then I just threw in a filter only field with a couple suggestions, but you could also just write anything in, and it just passes that. And now instead in this Cortex function, I've got instead of a hard-coded question, it's just going to take that input from the filter, and so make this pretty flex. Those were most of the ones I wanted to show, but some interesting things.
So are you just pulling the information that's available to Claude or the underlying model in that area? Like, is that like connected to LinkedIn or something? Because like the difference between, like I asked in our workbook which states had good pizza, and the only one that got good pizza was New York. Everyone else has bad pizza apparently. But I'm just trying to think of like the step difference for what's available on ChatGPT today versus how people will actually use Cortex in practice. Is it like live information versus static, or?
It's, I mean, It's basically the equivalent to like if I was to go directly to ChatGPT and ask that question with like for each company or whatever, or give it a company and say what's or a state and say does Texas have good pizza, and you can choose the model. You can either encode it into Omni, like into that function I have, and say I want to use explicitly like the latest Claude model, or you could make it dynamic like Colin had, and he made it a switcher so you can pick. But it's
the system prompt is going to be different between using ChatGPT on your like browser or phone versus like using Claude through Cortex. Like Snowflake will have some like default system prompts that force the model to classify if you say classify, or complete if you say complete. Yeah, and Claude is, my opinion, more intelligent than GPT-4o. So it might be like doing a little bit better there.
Ariel, do you know are Cortex's models capable of like making web requests to pull more data or anything like that? I'm guessing.
I don't know.
Kirti's shaking his head. I'm gonna trust his authority on this one.
I think Kirti is our leading authority on these right now. But it's pretty magical, the stuff that you can sort of lightly parameterize, and I think that we could probably lean into building some use cases around these that are pretty valuable.
Yeah, this is also just like marketing we can do without any product development required, and content we can write.
Here's just the Snowflake documentation. So I was just playing around a lot with complete, which is like a general purpose, just ask some question. Colin, I think, showed like classify, but you can see they have other things like sentiments, summarize. Here's our localization strategy, I suppose. But yeah, this is all just coming from Snowflake.
Yeah, so I think on the sales side, if we pulled from Salesforce every single account as in each rep's name, and then on a rep by rep basis for all public companies, we could have a good look at like the 10K and the major initiatives that they have in each one of those and just list it out. So you'd have a list of like everyone you should probably go focus on and target. So pretty cool.
Cool. And not to take up too much other time, for what it's worth, this is Snowflake specific. I was trying to poke around this morning and see if like other databases support anything like this. BigQuery does have some. I didn't get a chance to get hands on with it. They have something called like Vertex AI that I think can do something similar. So there is a untested but possible chance that BigQuery customers could be doing similar types of things.